Hey.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Just refill the
Exactly. Go to the bathroom. We had a band that went by. We had to say hi to them. So we were really getting into some good topic of, building culture at a school beyond just having a sport that comes and goes. And as Val was really getting into some deep stuff here, we had a technical difficulty with our Wi-Fi connection. So that said, let's see if we can pick up the head of steam. So you were talking about rather than doing, I don't want to put words in your mouth or paraphrase, but rather than just having a sport come and go, you want to build a culture. You want to build an understanding that sticks around longer.
Yeah. So the whole idea of building a community is, of course, very important. Specifically for the youth program and the youth team is important that. Because there is so much dedication by some individual that often they get overwhelmed, and so they need to find support.
Or if that one individual goes, that
especially
goes
in
away.
the Bay Area, there is so much turnover.
Very transient.
and people come and go.
Right.
There is very difficult to maintain that group or that team. So from one side is try to educate the coaches to seek for help. And help them to get the parents engaged on the process. That's very important. Sometimes they don't have just the time. So we kind of try to, this is kind of the first step. The other step is try to put in connection, let's say you have a high school team, and around you there might be some other middle school groups. And so try to put in connection those people that they can work together in a kind of feeder system instead of just work independently.
Nice.
So then the other piece we try to organize for them maybe a summer camp nearby, so we can outreach new players that can fit in the elementary, maybe after school, or in the middle school team, and that can fit in the high school. And then the cooler thing about that with all the program and activity we do, then eventually the high school player either go in college or stay, but they might become the coaches.
Or even come back
and help the middle school.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the system that we try to build.
The circle of life of ultimate frisbee and a coach. Absolutely. What's the gentleman's last name? Jeff? He's one.
There are many Jeff, but
exactly.
Jeff Rectford, or which one?
Really good player. I just played with him up at the Davis hat tournament. I should know his name. Solid guy, great player, and was wagging me around as I was trying to defend him. But I wish I knew his name. I should know. Maybe you'll have a revelation because he played locally, and he played with. I think he played with Berkeley High, and he was a youth coach. He's a youth coach. He went down to Modesto. Relocated from Modesto. Not Modesto.
Jeff Rectov.
Okay, yes.
It's the coach also. He built a program in Turlock, right? Is
How not Jeff? To conduct an interview. You do your research immediately on the spot. This is great. Yeah, solid guy. So I've seen him sort of come up and down through the ranks, and
I think he started actually in the Las Positas group.
Is that right?
Like the group of guys with KK, under KK umbrella. So that's.
Is that right? Is that his thing?
Yeah.
Right. Solid guy, really nice guy, and.
But more example on that is, for example, another player that play for, and your son play for Aftershock, the U16 YCC team, the kind of the all-star team. We bring a national.
Yes.
And so. This was the first year that one of the player of that program, the YCC program, come back and help the U16 team. So he was one assistant coach.
Who was that?
For that team? That was Nick Tolfa.
Okay, Nick, I don't know.
From San Mateo.
Nice, very cool.
And he's now is in Davis playing college, but he helped with the team this year. So we start to see, and the fact that these kids are willing to coach, it really showed how much they feel the sport and they care about the sport.
Rio too.
Rio is another example. Exactly, he coming from Berkeley High, and now he's in college, but he also go back and help his own program.
He's with the Spiders too, I think. He's
Yeah.
He's all over the place. So
He
congratulate
also
you, Rio.
helping with the dogfish last year.
Yes.
And was involved with the spider in the previous year.
Solid
So
guy.
that kind of really show how much this guy embodied the sport, the love for the sport.
Very much so. One of the things that it's very interesting when you are a coach and you're dealing with a lot of players who aren't necessarily not familiar with team sports or team dynamics, and it's very interesting when you have the opportunity to be as a coach, or you watch, you can find a way to be very creative in your teaching of the sport, and really, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm waxing poetic. You got me. We're talking about sports. We'll come back around to that. But
It's good. I mean, that's I don't know where you're going, but specifically the fact that coaching is fascinating.
It's completely fascinating.
And it's difficult, it's hard, and one thing I noticed in the years that we teach the kids that they need to understand that part of the sport is also make mistake, and it's okay.
Sure.
But the tricky part of being a coach is that you want to avoid mistake at all costs, right? And you don't allow to yourself to make mistake.
Sure.
And that's kind of something that over the year you understand that you also as a coach need to make mistake to learn. And it's hard, but
Sure.
it's part of the role. And you need to forgive yourself too sometimes.
Absolutely. If you can check the wins and losses out and just don't even contemplate them and understand all the benefits of ultimate. And I say I'm getting ahead of myself because I really want to talk about where Val learned the sport in Italy, and we're going to come back around and talk about sort of more of the emotional, social aspects, and the coaching all comes together. So this is why I'm saying I'm getting ahead of myself, because we got a head of steam. But let me just diverge slightly and talk about Italy. And by the way, off camera, he talks with a Long Island accent. This is all a fake accent. So anyway, but you learned the sport in Italy, Bologna.
Yeah, Bologna. That was where I was in college basically at that time, and there was this team that was kind of a couple of years fresh start, and I was curious because I didn't know there was a sport. I was just play some strange this with friends, like that one without
the hoop. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that kind of stuff. So that was interesting. Then I went there, and it was actually raining. Nobody was there, and so there was some track athletes leaving the complex because it was raining. I say, well, I thought that there was some team practice going over here. They say, oh, whoa, the frisbee player, they are always here. Don't worry if it's rain. They will come. And I was, of course, nice. Late, like every ultimate player is late.
Sure.
But then I joined them, and I wasn't really dressed for playing, but it was super fun. There was a lot of mud, and there was a bunch of layout, and it was very fun. So, and actually, I remember. I'm not sure that was that day or a couple of weeks later. But one of the guy told me, "Hey, I think you have potential. You're good." And I was terrible because I didn't know how to throw a flick. Sure. I mean, I was,
let alone what a flick, right? Right.
I was pretty bad at the beginning. Like I didn't know really.
But wasn't the flick a cool thing to see someone throw a flick?
Well, it was amazing, especially when you try.
Exactly.
I mean, at that time,
got me like going. I want that. That's what hooked me on the sport. I want to throw that. If anything, I want to throw. I don't throw well.
Especially the inside out. The inside out flick was something that.
Really.
How you do that? And took me, I think, 3 months to have a flat flick, because at that time there was not really. This is early 19. And there was really no people teaching. You were kind of scrambling tips from one to the other. Everyone have different style. Everyone teach. Still a thing.
Right.
I mean, everyone teach you a different way.
Right.
But right now you see these kids in elementary. have like solid coaching,
yes.
and they start like in the same
throws.
day they can throw, and they learn so fast, and when they are like in already middle school and high school, they're amazing.
They're amazing, and they look bored doing it. Like they beat you, and they're like yawning, like, you know.
Yeah,
so,
they need to learn new trick, new
Yes.
throws, and that's the kind of, you know, we always discover something new with our sport. I mean, I think we are really in infancy stage, in terms of tactics, in terms of skill, in terms of even like if you think you mentioned athletes, right? So can you picture play beach ultimate or ultimate, maybe mix, you know, girl and boys, well at that point women and men, but instead of having like our best player right now, having athletes, volleyball athletes or basketball athletes. Can you picture that? Like,
it'll be amazing. But that comes into the theory that we're going to see that, we'll see that when money comes on the table, when money happens, and then all of a sudden you're going to have people go, I can actually make a living do this, and I think you're going to find athletes. I mean, like true, like that level of athlete. That's my projection.
I mean, that's.
But when it happens on that level, without that, yeah, absolutely.
But you know, you have also
I mean, people be laying out, they be making sick throws.
Yeah, I think money definitely is a factor. But you know, if you see like other Olympic sport, and we talk a lot about ultimate being the Olympics, some of the amazing athletes, they don't do that for a living, you know, and they're still the best of the best, the athletes. So there are, I don't think money necessarily is the only way to go. You know, other component like education, passion, and other factor also need to be, probably will play a role on that.
Can't dispute that. Absolutely. There's far more. There's other variables that come into play with this. I completely agree. So let me ask you this, because we're veering away from Italy. Let's talk about the Olympics. And I was talking with Andy last week. If the Olympics appear in 2024, how do you think, what iteration of the sport will appear in the Ultimates? What do you think it'll be?
I think beach ultimate have a great shot.
Do you think it'll be mixed? It'll be gender?
I think it will be mixed. I hope it will be mixed, because it's really it basically highlights our value, our characteristic, our special characteristic. You know, so I think that will be self-officiated and mixed. That's what we can offer to the outside world, what we can offer to the sport in general, like sports.
I like to think along those same lines. I think it makes it compelling for the Olympic Committee to bring in a sport that has sort of minimal impact, less fields, and its uniqueness of like beach volleyball. You have a lot of athleticism that can happen. It brings in both genders, and there's less fields they have to coordinate. That said, Andy was talking about how he'd like to see it played on turf or grass, because you get the highest execution of the sport, which I thought was interesting. So I believe it's going to be mixed in beach. I think there's a circus-like atmosphere that can bring the sport.
Well, you know, the Olympic Committee, they already told us that those are the things they're really looking for, and they're what really make us special. So they're really looking for the self-officiating and the co-ed aspect. Now, beach versus grass, I think that is more political and more, you know, a decision, operational decision that might happen in terms of where will be host, and you know, what kind of resources they have, what kind of maybe slot they need to fill. Sure. So I'm not sure, but you know, I think that the beach might bring some. For who perceive our sport, the beach could be like something, oh, this is even more exciting. Not necessarily, but you know, I think for the outside, they might have that sensation.
Exactly, and that's the point. Whereas if you're talking to the ultimate community, that might be something completely. Versus, how are you going to get more eyeballs intrigued by the sport?
Yeah. Also, because think about the scale they have, they might have full program and use the stadium and the field. At the beach, there might be not so much going on in terms of sport. So, you know, they might feel gaps or windows in between their program and still using that space for other activities. So.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're playing on a landlocked country that does not have beach, it might be impractical to truck in. Is that what you're saying? All this, right. And then people can't realize, to Andy's point, that there's places that don't have beach. So you're showing this sport, whereas in grass, people can relate and so that said, but I'm glad I wanted to entertain that topic with you. So so let's get into sort of the meat and potatoes of where you've been seeing the sport go, and you've been growing it wide, and I salute you. That's one of the main reasons. I mean, you're a solid guy, you're a friend, and I'm glad my son has had the ability to be in your presence and be benefactor of your program. But you're bringing it to a much higher ideal with social and emotional learning, which is, I think everybody's in the sport and coaching the sport for a lot of these reasons, but you're actually putting some psychological elements and to this.
Well, I was always intrigued by why we're exciting about the sport, and the whole idea of spirit of the game was really intriguing.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself how this work, how this function, why this is exciting or fun or interesting for a lot of people, right? Because think about all people that now say we need to play with refs. That's the only way to go. I see so many people drop because we don't have refs, and there is this awkward system of self-officiating. Those same guys learn to play with self-officiating, right?
Sure.
And with spirit of the game.
Sure.
And they didn't turn down, right? They stick with it because they love it.
Oh, sure.
I think there is a big component, even for the people that now kind of dismiss the idea of self-officiating and spirit of the game. There is something that at the beginning they got caught.
Sure.
I don't believe that when they say that it was just the frisbee, it was just the dynamic of the game. I'm pretty sure there was a component also about the social structure, about the environment, and about the spirit of the game after all.
So, having come from a basketball background and played a lot of pickup, that was a sport when you play pickup, it's self-officiating. But it tended to be more argumentative, and it was a different element, whereas this is, and we didn't call it spirit of the game, it was a sort of respect to call, but it came with a level of like antagonism that tended to be. And what's very interesting about Ultimate Frisbee is that for the most part you made the call. Sometimes it came, depending on the caller, came with a whole PowerPoint presentation of why the infraction. Most times than not, they made the call and you moved on, or we either disputed it and it went back, or it stayed there, and it was very clean. So spirit of the game, just to talk about self-officiating, I think the officiating game takes sort of that call element out and it just allows the athlete to be the athlete. But the purity of the sport, I love it. I love it on so many levels. So deeper, what is the benefits of spirit of the game?
Well, in terms of branding, it's one of our special feature. Right? It's like you sell a Ferrari and now you say, well, you know what? The more common color is blue. Let's do a blue Ferrari. But Ferrari is red. It's an ugly color, but you need to sell the red.
Nice.
And it's like a selling point.
Interesting.
It's not
but it's not. It's not pulling this out of your butt. I mean, this is a solid foundation to build around. This is not a manufactured because we need to brand it. This is a solid.
Yeah, no. That I mean, if we go like in that direction, I think that's even like a marketing strategy that we can use. That now in more like educational side of the topic. So one interesting thing, team sport, they help kids, or not just kids, everybody that play team sport, about teamwork, right? It's basically helping the me versus us, right?
Yep.
And that's all sport, all team sport do that. Now I think the ultimate actually teach morality with the self-officiation structure, with the idea of spirit of the game. It's more like us versus them, and that's another step. So I think in that sense, self-officiation and spirit of the game is teach morality, not just teamwork, and that's something that we can provide and other sport can't. That's just as
Of
a
course.
general idea of what really is changing psychologically on the field.
So I'm looking at this, you're talking about social emotional learning, and there were 5 competencies: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness are part of the sport of ultimate.
Well, yeah, social emotional learning, it's not nothing new. It's called soft skill, the cognitive skill. I mean, there's education is going around that concept for a long time. Social emotional learning is just like a more recent terminology, a kind of more recent research they did and really show, and basically is a way to categorize those skills in a kind of different way. But so let's say it's a kind of brand terminology that is used a lot, but it's important actually because when we talk with school district or with teachers or educator about ultimate frisbee, nobody knows, right? If we talk about spirit of the game, they don't get it. I mean, what's that? But if we start to talk their language and we start to mention, social emotional learning, and it's basically what spirit of the game activate on the player, those competences that make a big impact on them. They really open their ear and listen to you. So I think it's important to use something that really resonate on their culture or their workplace.
Absolutely, I think that's brilliant. I mean, if you want to, that's just like negotiating sales 101. You're speaking someone's language, you're understanding the challenges and how you're able to resolve those with your sport. I thought that was brilliant. I think there's a lot of stuff is like, well, duh, we do all those, but you were able to actually define those, and no, it was very cool when I read about that.
If you pick one, like self-management, there's a lot of a big list of what self-management is, but think about in a ultimate field, it's basically manage your emotion, right? So either you are like in a pickup game where you don't know the other player, or you are like a middle school tournament, or you are in a league, or like an adult competitive world championship. You need to manage your emotion, right? I mean, you play, you practice for a long time, you're really eager to win, but things happen, and you might are caught in some emotional stuff. You need to manage your emotion, sure. Right? Your anger, your frustration, and that's work in ultimate all the time, right? All the time.
So it was interesting watching Alec play, and I've constantly tried to say, don't get sucked in, don't bite, whatever's happening that would take his energy away from the game. And I've seen him bite and find all his energy to fight an opponent or get down in the situation. You can see him being taken out of his game. And it's nice to see that he's able to, he's a very spirited player, and he plays with a lot of emotion, and but at the same time, he does not get, he's very centered, does not get sucked into those emotions that can divert him away from the game. And he understands the flow of the game in such a way that, much like Ultimate Frisbee, you can go from hero to goat to hero to goat in a game, let alone 1 point. So I played in a game a couple weeks ago where a guy dropped the first 3 points that were thrown to him, the first 3 throws that thrown to him, and he threw a couple away. And at the end of the game, he made 1 layout D and a sick catch to score the winning goal. And it was very interesting. That in of itself sort of encapsulated, you stay centered, you understand the game, how it plays, and he manages emotion, and he looked great. I came up and just mentioned that. It was really cool to see. That said, let me steer it back to Val. When was this this tenet, this social emotional learning brought to your attention when you decided to sort of use this to champion this in schools?
Well, basically, I was always, I did some research about psychologically what was the steps, moral steps that happen on Ultimate. So, for example, in the US Ultimate version of Spirit of the Game, there is like this golden rule, right?
Tell me, what does that mean?
Well, basically, don't do
do unto. Okay.
To someone what you don't want.
Okay.
So that's kind of the standard. But I think we go actually over that with Ultimate because at a certain point we really realized that following the rule, understand, respect the opponent is just the best thing to do. It's not just the golden rule. It's go over that. And so in that sense, there is a higher morality that we are engaged when we play Ultimate. And then reading stuff and do my research. Basically, now social emotional learning is very popular. I mean, all school districts all around the country are really looking on bring some kind of program that work on those skills with their kids. So there are a ton of research. They also show how beneficial that is for not just school and results, school testing, but also in like a longer perspective of be a citizen, be a contributor of your society. And so I saw the two things, and for me they overlap perfectly, because the other important factor is most of these programs classroom, right? You stay in the classroom, you learn a bunch of things.
Exactly.
But they are struggling with bring those skills in more like a real life setting.
Right.
And I think Ultimate is a perfect transition to that, because it's still like a safe environment.
Right.
It's still regulated, but it's not classroom.
Right.
It's you play against another one.
Sure.
You have contact. You have something to say. You hate that whatever. You're like
Right.
it's real life.
Exactly.
Not real life in terms of like street life, but it's a great transition
Sure.
for that,
Sure.
and also is a great test. Another thing the social emotional program struggling are testing. These kids are learning because normally it's just a bunch of survey, a bunch of self-testing
Okay.
or reflection. While with Ultimate we can have a better tool, because we can follow a game and say this kid's actually speak up twice in this game. They call foul 3 times, and 3 times he was able to, with social skill, he was able to communicate with the other. He retracted the call, so he showed they're really like a decision making and conflict resolutions. So we can test in a different, a very interesting way what the kids are doing. So those two aspects for me are key to make Ultimate like very interesting for school districts. And also it's very cheap. That's another
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So
No, that's well. And also really.
that's a big part. I mean,
Right.
you just need like either a coach or training the teacher, and doesn't cost almost anything
Sure.
if you have like a space.
So if all this psychological mumbo jumbo doesn't catch you, it's also cheap. But to go back to what you're saying is, so when I do coach the high school kids, one of the things that I like to do is put kids that are quiet in charge. Get in front of people when there's 7 on the line, and you talk to your kids. What's the offense? What's the defense? What's the force? Project, talk, lead, and you find that you get more and more kids who are normally sitting on their hands are standing up in front of people, and they're in charge of a drill, they're in charge of one set of offense or one set of defense, and you find they walk away going, I kind of like that. I didn't have that opportunity. And it's like, I don't care if you fail, I don't care if you're nervous, just do. And you empower them to walk away. And sometimes it happens within the game, and sometimes you have to force their hand going, make the call. I don't care. Empower them with the confidence. And lots of times that you have to sort of force the laboratory. Sometimes it's a natural laboratory and kids come up, but more times than not, you find that the vocal kids naturally and the quiet kids naturally go there. So I like to sort of force the opposite. The ones that talk too much, step down and observe more, and the ones that don't talk enough, I want you to step up and embrace some of these things.
Yeah, what you just say is basically a combination between social awareness and self-management also, like self-esteem and confidence. Those things are all in play.
Did you get kids like, I don't want to do that, and they come back around going, I really like that? I'm like, thank you. I mean, I don't care if you fall on your hands. That's all I want you to do. Fall on your face. That's all I want to see, because you're going to learn more. Anything.
So I think that the weakness that often when we talk about spirit of the game, self-officiation, the weakness of, say, this is not working, you saw that game was terrible, you saw that call really make everything change in the game, and all those issues actually are, I think, our strength, because those issues are opportunity to talk, to review, to reflect, and eventually come back, because it's like, again, it's in real life, it's not like everything go perfect, right? It's not, at least the opposite, right? So it's more like you stay on the line, right? So you go out and you go back,
right? So
those are opportunity to go back. Sure. And I think that's for me, it's some frustration when we jump easily to say this is not working for this specific game or specific situation. We need to put refs. Is a frustration, because those accidents actually are what make us discuss and go back. It's like in family, right? When you and when you educate your kids, issue, a conflict arise, right? And trouble and problem are going to happen anyway, right?
Right.
So you don't call police to make fix things with inside your family, right? You talk about it.
Right.
So those problems are opportunity to talk and adjust and learn. So it's the same for us. And we talk often about spirit of the game.